Dear friends, welcome back to Data Analytics Talks. This is the fourth part of Databricks Certified Data Engineer Associate exam tips. So we have seen Databricks Lakehouse platform, ALT with the Spark SQL, incremental data processing, and this is the production pipeline, which is having 16% weightage. So if you have not seen this video, please check out this playlist and go through them. So in this video, let's discuss some of the scenarios that you can encounter in the exam. A delta tables pipeline includes two datasets defined using streaming live table. Three datasets are defined against delta lake table sources using live table. The table is configured to run in production mode using the continuous pipeline mode. Assuming previously unprocessed data exists and all definitions are valid, what is the expected outcome after clicking to start to update the pipeline? So we have some options. All data sets will be updated at set intervals until the pipeline is shut down. The compute resource will persist to allow for additional testing. You have to check the table is configured to run in production mode and using continuous pipeline mode. Okay. So it won't allow, since it is a production mode, it won't allow additional testing. So this option is not correct. All datasets will be updated once and the pipeline will persist without any processing. The compute resource will persist but go unused. Let's look into the other option. All datasets will be updated at set intervals until the pipeline is shut down. The compute resource will be deployed for the update and terminated when the pipeline is stopped. Okay, let's say other option. All datasets will be updated once and the pipeline will shut down. This compute resource will be terminated. Now here you can look, it is a continuous mode, right? It's a production mode. So it won't be, this won't be the answer. Then last tips, all datasets will be updated once and the pipeline will shut down. The compute resource will persist to allow for additional testing. This is also talking about the testing. So we can remove this option also. So we have two options left. Okay, let's see which is the right answer. The answer is all datasets will be updated at set intervals until the pipeline is shut down. Because we have set the pipeline to run continuous mode, so this pipeline will run until you shut down. And the compute resource will be deployed for the update and terminated when the pipeline is stopped. So this is the right answer. Even option B also is not correct. Another scenario, an engineering manager wants to monitor the performance of a recent project using a Databricks SQL query. For the first week following the project release, the manager wants to query the result to be updated every minute. However, the manager is concerned that the compute resource used for the query will be left running and cost the organization a lot of money beyond the first week of the project release. So, which of the following approaches can the engineering team use to ensure the query does not cost the organization any money beyond the first week of the project release? The scenario is like, the project is released and they need to monitor for some time and the query has to execute, but the organization makes sure that it won't cost anything beyond the first week of the project release. So, what is the option for that? So they can set a limit to the number of DBUs that are consumed by the SQL endpoint. Let's see what are the other tips. They can set the query refresh schedule to end after a certain number of refreshes. So we have a stipulated time, that is first week of the project, no? So it should not be a certain number of refresh. They cannot ensure the query does not cost the organization money beyond the first week of the project release. Because this is not correct. We can, for sure, we can ensure the query does not cost. So they can set a limit to the number of individuals that are able to manage the query refresh schedule. This is not the right answer anyway. And they can set the query's refresh schedule to end on a certain date in the query scheduler. So what would be the answer here? So we should stop refresh on a certain date. I think that is the right answer. So we need to run this for first week, and after that it should be stopped. So we can schedule the end of the refresh. Okay, let's go to the next scenario. A data engineer has been using a Databricks SQL dashboard to monitor the cleanliness of the input data to an ELT job. The ELT job has its Databricks SQL query that returns the number of inputs records containing the unexpected null values. The data engineer wants their entire team to be notified via a messaging webhook whenever the value reaches 100. This is ask. Okay, they want to be notified using a webhook. Which of the following approaches can the data engineer use to notify their entire team via a message webhook whenever the number of null values reaches 100? Let's see the tips. They can set up an alert with a custom template because they are asking for webhook, right? So this is not the right answer. They can set up an alert with a new email alert destination. Let's see what other options they have. They can set up an alert with a new webhook alert destination. This looks very close. They can set up an alert with one time notification. That's not correct. They can set up an alert without notification. So the answer is they can set up an alert with a new webhook alert destination. That's the right answer. So we can see there is already a referring to webhook and notification and so on. So we should think in that aspect. So another scenario, a single job runs two notebooks as a two separate tasks. A data engineer has noticed that one of the notebook is running slowly in the job's current run. The data engineer asked a tech lead for help in identifying why this might be the case. Which of the following approaches can the tech lead use to identify why the notebook is running solely as part of the job? So options are they can navigate to the rules tab in the jobs UI to immediately review the processing notebook. Then another option they can navigate to the task tab in the jobs UI and click on the active run to review the processing notebook. They can navigate to the runs tab in the jobs UI and click on the active runs to review the processing notebook. There is no way to determine why a job task is running slowly. They can navigate to the task tab in the jobs UI to immediately review the processing notebook. So we can say that this is not right. This is not right. Either it should be like they can navigate to the runs tab. So we are worried about the job run, right? So it should be runs tab in the jobs UI and click on the active run to review the processing notebook. Let me see the answer. The answer is they can navigate to the runs tab in the jobs UI and click on the active run to review the processing notebook. Okay. Then coming to the another scenario, a data engineer has a job with multiple tasks that run nightly. Each of the tasks runs slowly because the cluster takes a long time to start. Which of the following actions can the data engineer perform to improve the startup time for the cluster used for the job? So it's all why the cluster is starting very slowly. That is the question. So let's see the tips. They can use endpoints available in the database SQL. They can use jobs cluster instead of all purpose cluster. They can configure the clusters to be a single node. They can use clusters that are from a cluster pool. They can configure the cluster to auto scale for larger data sizes. So out of this looks the correct answer. They can use clusters that are from a cluster pool, right? That's a right, because cluster pool, we can choose the cluster and as we need it. Then coming to another scenario, which of the following describes a scenario in which a data team will want to utilize cluster pools? Again, the same question. An automated report needs to be refreshed as quickly as possible. This could be a scenario. An automated report needs to be made reproducible. No, this is not the right thing. An automated report needs to be tested to identify errors. No. An automated report needs to be a version controlled across multiple collaborators. No. An automated report needs to be runnable by all stakeholders. This is also not answer. The right answer is an automated report needs to be refreshed as quickly as possible. That's where we need a cluster pools. So remember that when we want a fast response, then think about cluster pools. And the scenario, a data engineer team has a multitask job in production. The team members need to be notified in the case of job failure. Which of the following approach can be used to send emails to the team members in case of job failure? Option 1, they can use job API to programmatically send email according to each task status. They can configure email notification setting in the job page. There is no way to notify users in the case of job failure. This is absolutely no. Only job owner can be configured to be notified in case of job failure. This also not correct. They can configure email notification setting per notebooks in the task page. So we are talking about multitask job in production. So they can configure email notification setting in the jobs page because we are going to notify job failure, right? So it should be related to job, right? So I think this should be the right answer. Let's try that. Yes, they can configure email notification settings in the jobs page. So here you have to be very careful. Like the questions, we are talking about job failure, and they also looking for email notifications. So related to job, let's configure it. A data engineer has a job with multiple tasks that takes more than 2 hours to complete. In the last run, the final task unexpectedly failed. Which of the following action can the data engineer perform to complete this job run while minimizing the execution time? So job has failed and we are asking for what is the next action that can be taken to minimize the execution time. The tips, they can rerun the job to execute all the tasks. This is not correct because it is going to take a lot of time. They can repair this job run, so only the failed task will be re-executed. This looks correct. Let's see. They need to delete the failed run and start a new run for the new job. No, this is not right. They can keep the failed run and simply start a new run for the job. This is also not, because it's going to take the same time. We don't need to. We want to minimize the execution time. They can run the job in production mode, which automatically retries execution in case of errors. No, no, this is not the context. Okay, it is maybe correct, but this is not context. So what is answer? The answer is they can repair the job run, so only the failed task will be re-executed. Which of the following services can a data engineer use for orchestration purpose in Databricks platform? Orchestration purpose, right? Let's look into orchestration purpose. Delta Live Table, Cluster Pools, Databricks Jobs, Delta Explorer, Unity Catalog Lineage. The answer is Databricks Job. Databricks jobs are used to orchestrate jobs. For production jobs, which of the following cluster type is recommended to use? We have all-purpose cluster, production cluster, job cluster, on-premise cluster, serverless cluster. The answer is job cluster. So all-purpose cluster, this interactive cluster is used to data exploration, development, and collaborative analytics in notebooks. Job cluster is is ephemeral clusters created automatically to run jobs and terminated after job completes. Then production cluster, highly reliable long-running clusters optimized for scheduled jobs and production workloads. On-premise clusters, the clusters deployed in the organization's own data center, typically managed outside of Databricks. Serverless clusters, fully managed compute that auto scales and abstracts infrastructure, ideal for running SQL queries without cluster management. The other scenario in Databricks jobs, which of the following approaches can a data engineer use to configure linear dependency between task A and task B? So it's talking about linear dependency between task A and task B. So they can select the task A in the dependent on the field of the task B configuration. They can assign task A an order number of 1, assign task B order number of B 2. That's not correct. They can visually drag and drop arrows from task A to task B in the job canvas. That's not the right answer. They can configure the dependency at the notebook level using dbutils.jobs.utility. This is also not correct. So Databricks jobs do not support linear dependency between tasks. They can only be achieved in Delta live table pipelines. It's also not correct. So the right answer is they can select the task A in the dependence on the field of task B configuration. Okay. Which of the following type of task cannot set up through a job? Notebook, Delta live table, Spark Summit, Python, Databricks SQL dashboard refresh. So the question is which of the following type of task cannot set up through a job? Let's see what it is. Databricks SQL dashboard refresh cannot be achieved using a task setup. And the scenario, which of the following approaches can the data engineer use to obtain a version controllable configuration of the job schedule and configuration? The answer is they can link the jobs to notebook that are part of Databricks repos. They can submit the job once on a job cluster. They can download a JSON equivalent of the job from jobs page. This looks very close. They can submit the job once on an all-purpose cluster. No, nothing. They can download the XML description of the job from jobs page. This also not correct. So we can eliminate all these options. Let's see the answer. The answer is they can download the JSON equivalent of the job from the jobs page. Good. What steps needs to be taken to step up a Delta Live pipeline as a job using Workspace UI? What steps need to be taken to set up a Delta Live pipeline as a job using Workspace UI? Delta Live table do not support job cluster. Select Workflow UI Delta Live Tables tab. Under the task type, select Delta Live Table Pipeline and select the notebook. Let's wait and see. Select Workflow UI and Delta Live Table tab. Under task type, select Delta Live Table Pipeline. Use Pipeline Creation UI. Select a new pipeline and job cluster. The answer would be select Workflow UI and Delta Live Tables tab. Under Task tab, select Delta Live Table Pipeline and select the notebook. Good. Another scenario, data engineer team has provided 10 queries, asked the data analyst team to build dashboard and refresh the data every day at 8 a.m. Identify the best approach to set up a data refresh for the dashboard. Let's see the options. Each query requires a separate task and set up 10 tasks under a single job to run at 8 a.m. to refresh the dashboard. This is not correct. The entire dashboard with the 10 queries can be refreshed at once. Single schedule needs to be set up to refresh at 8 a.m. This looks correct. Let's see the other options also. Set up job with a linear dependency to all 10 queries into a table so the dashboard can be refreshed at once. A dashboard can only refresh one query at a time. 10 schedules to get set up to refresh. That's also not correct. Use incremental refresh to run at 8 a.m. every day. So let's see the answer. The answer is the entire dashboard with 10 queries can be refreshed at once. Single schedule needs to be set up to refresh at 8 a.m. Another scenario, a data engineering team is using a SQL query to review data completeness every day to monitor the ETL job, and query output is being used in multiple dashboards. Which of the following approach can be used to set up a schedule and automate this process? Again, let me read out. The data engineer team is using a SQL query to review the data completeness every day to monitor the ETL job, and query output is being used in multiple dashboards. Which of the following approach can be used to set up a schedule and automate this process? See the tips. They can schedule the query to run every day from the jobs UI. They can schedule the query to refresh every day from the queries page in the Databricks SQL. This is not correct because it is talking about jobs UI, but the query should be talking about queries page, right? They can schedule the query to run every 12 hours from the jobs UI. This is also not correct. They can schedule the query to refresh every day from the SQL endpoint page in the Databricks SQL. That's also not correct. They can schedule the job query to refresh every 12 hours from the SQL endpoint page in Database SQL. So the question is they want to run every day, right? So they can schedule the query to refresh every day from the queries page in the Databricks SQL. That's the answer. The answer is they can schedule the query to refresh every day from the queries page in Databricks SQL. Another scenario, a data engineer is running a Databricks SQL query to monitor the performance of ETL job. The ELT job is triggered by a specific number of input records being ready to process. The Databricks SQL query returns the number of minutes since the job's most recent runtime. Which of the following approach can enable the data engineering team to be notified if ELT job has not been run in an hour? The tips, they can set up an alert for the accompanying dashboard to notify them if the returned value is greater than 60. They can set up an alert for the query to notify when the ELT jobs fail. They can set up an alert for the accompanying dashboard to notify when it has not refreshed in 60 minutes. They can set up an alert for the query to notify them if the returned value is greater than 60. This type of alert is not possible in Databricks. So let's see the answer, correct answer. The correct answer is they can set up an alert for the query to notify them if the returned value is greater than 60. They can set up an alert for the accompanying dashboard to notify. No, this is not correct. They are only they can set up alert for the query. They are setting the alert for the query. Then which of the following is true when building a Databricks SQL dashboard? A dashboard can only use results from one query. That is not correct, right? Only one visualization can be developed with one result, one query result. That's also not correct. A dashboard can only connect to one schema or database. More than one visualization can be developed using a single query result. This looks correct. A dashboard can only have one refresh schedule. So these are wrong. Let's see the answer is more than one visualization can be developed using a single query result. Another scenario, a delta live table pipeline can be scheduled to run in two different modes. What are these? two different modes. We have triggered mode and continuous mode, right? We have triggered and incremental once and continuous, triggered and continuous once, incremental, continuous and incremental. The result is triggered and continuous. So these are the two modes we can run a delta live table. Data engineering team has a job currently set up to run a task, load data into reporting table every day at 8 a.m. Takes about 20 minutes. Operations teams are planning to use that data to run a second job. So they access at least complete set of data. What is the best way to orchestrate this job setup? An operation reporting task, add operation reporting task in the same job and set the data engineering task to depend on. Is it correct? Set up a second job to run at 8:20 a.m. in the same workspace. Add operation reporting task in the same job and set the operation reporting task to depend on the data engineering task. Use autoloader to run every 20 minutes to read the initial table and set the trigger to once and create second job. It's not correct. Set up a delta live table based on the first table. Set the job to run in the continuous mode. The answer is add operations reporting task in the same job and set the operating operations reporting task to depend on the data engineering task. Correct. So we have to do some dependency adjustments in the task.